Vancouver Hockey Show, back with you once again. Andrew Wadden and the Healthy Scratches, Nic Hauka and Jake Fraser here, guys. Did anything big happen this week for the Vancouver Canucks, guys? Like, I mean, you know, it just seems like it's all quiet. Oh, no, it's not. Of course it's not. Major trades going down for the Canucks. Of course, JT Miller finally shipped out of town. But, guys, they didn't wait after that. A few hours later, they're taking pieces that they got from the Rangers, flipping it over to Pittsburgh. So when you break it all down, they now have Philip Chytil. Say that right? Chytil? Chytil. That's right. You don't pronounce the C. Marcus Pettersson, Drew O'Connor. Guys, I mean, just want to start, really from the top. Let's go, with Miller leaving and really the impact that that's going to make. Because as I look at the Canucks lines now, specifically that second line, it doesn't really jump off the page to me without Miller there anymore, Nick.
It definitely doesn't. You lost a great asset because of what was going on, and there's a huge void to fill, right? Like Chytil, from what I've heard from a lot of people, is more of a third line center than a second line center. So there is going to be a big void there. The reality is you weren't going to win that trade. Every GM knew what was going on. Rutherford even admitted it, but GMs already knew what was going on before that, right? Like that didn't impact it at all, but they were not in a position of power. They were going to lose that trade. I'm sure they went after the best deal they had, and Carolina wasn't an option after that Rantanen trade. So it was really New York or nothing. He had a no movement clause. It kind of is what it is. And they got the best slew of prospects and Chytil, the defenseman, and a pick. And then they swung it and got Pettersson out of it. So that's kind of the best they could hope for.
Yeah, I look at Chytil, like you say, he is more of that third line center, but I do wonder if he's kind of been held back with the amount of center depth that New York does have. So I think he can be a solid second line center for the Canucks, but I think they definitely need to add some other pieces around him for that second line. Like if you want to put Petey with Besser and DeBrusk, then there's not really a ton left for Philip Chytil. So, I mean, Satyar Shah reported that the Canucks are still looking to add another forward that can impact. And I think they need to add someone that would complement Philip Chytil and just add some, maybe a little bit of goal scoring touch to that second line.
Where do they get these pieces though, guys? Like where do they find the pieces to be able to get that forward?
Well, they still have their first round pick this year. And I believe they have their second round pick this year as well. And next year too, actually. So first and second for this year and next. So, I mean, you could move one of those. The problem is right now, I don't see a lot of forwards that really can be impactful second liners that are on the trade market right now. Like when I was kind of racking my brain before we started recording here, I was thinking of some potential pieces they could go after. And like one of the best names that came to my mind was Yanni Gourde, who's
injured though. He just had a sports hernia, and he's not going to be back for weeks now.
That's right. And then another name that came to mind was Sam Bennett, but then I don't know if Florida decides to move off of him, but he is on that expiring contract. So there is that possibility there. But yeah, I just don't see a ton of impactful top six forwards being available on the trade market at this point. I mean, things can change as we get closer to the deadline, but they definitely need to, I think they're going to need to part ways with one of their first round picks for over the next 2 years as well.
This would be the year to do it too, right? There's a lot of reports from like elite prospect guys and stuff that this isn't a very strong class. Especially in like the middle first round to the late first round. This isn't a very strong class. So this would be the year to get rid of your picks to add players that are notable already and have established themselves. I don't know what the drafts look like in the next couple of years, but this would be the draft to get rid of those picks.
Okay, so what's the direction here though with this team right now? Because you're talking about trading away futures, but what is the future for the Vancouver Canucks? Because look at the core that's left. I mean, obviously Pettersson is locked up. He's staying. We know, he's, well, actually, in fact, he does have that no trade clause, or he doesn't, sorry, he doesn't have a no trade clause right now. So, maybe they could flip him. We know about the Carolina trade that almost happened, but, maybe they are still floating him out there. Who knows? But let's assume he does stay. Besser's future, Hughes' future, Demko's future. And the big one there is Hughes' future, I think, out of all this. So the reason why I ask you about, trading away futures is what happens, though, if Quinn Hughes next summer, when he can negotiate, his new deal, turns around and says, hey, guys, like pulls a Matt Tkachuk and just says, hey, guys, like, I'm not going to re-sign. So either you can ride me out through this season or trade me. So that's why I balk a little bit at trading futures, because what is the future for the Vancouver Canucks? Because it's hard to tell right now. And it kind of seems like there's a little bit of desperation going on between the Rutherford regime.
Yeah, I kind of think like you talk about Quinn Hughes. If you want him to stick around, you got to win. You got to start winning. You got to start proving that you're building a team around him that's eventually going to win a Stanley Cup. And so I kind of think you do have to use some of those futures to do that in order to keep him. Because, I mean, if it does come down to trading Quinn Hughes, you can get those futures back in a trade with him. So
yep.
I think leveraging those futures in order to keep Quinn Hughes 2 years from now is probably the best course of action for the Canucks management.
It is. And also, like we've seen in the past, especially after like the 2015-16 season, ownership doesn't like rebuilds, right? Like that's kind of the reality. Retools are fine, which is I think what we're starting to see right now with this core, but like I don't think there's ever going to be a full rebuild.
Yeah, and that's a good point about Hughes as well, in terms of like being able to get back those pieces. Boy, could you imagine what a Quinn Hughes trade would look like? I mean, obviously Canuck fans are listening to this pod right now, probably puking in their mouth even thinking of that. So, yeah. But what a return you could get. So that is a good point in that regard. But so let's circle Demko and Besser then, because Besser obviously is a UFA at the end of the season. Like, I'll start with you, Nick. Like, do you think he's going to be a Canuck, come next year?
I don't think he should be. I wrote a piece actually just the other day saying like they should get rid of him. I don't see the type of Besser's pretty unique in who he is as a player. I don't see his skill set working long term in the NHL. The game is getting a lot faster. He is not a good skater. It's just going to get worse. He's not strong. Can he put the puck in the net? Yes, absolutely. There's no denying that at all. He can flat out rip it. And I love watching him shoot. And actually yesterday on the power play, they had him on the wall rather than the bumper spot. And I liked what I saw. He was shooting a lot. I think down the line, he's going to turn into a power play specialist. I think you're going to have to hide him at 5-on-5. If you look at his underlying stats 5-on-5, they're not very good. And if you watch too, he's been turning the puck over more than he has ever since his like rookie year, especially in the neutral zone. Like, I don't want to pay, because he's charted at $8 million right now. That's the projected salary. I don't want to pay him that for a power play specialist in 2 years. I really don't think that. I think he's not a 40 goal scorer. That was an outlier. I think he's maybe a 30 goal scorer. 20 to 25 is probably more realistic. I don't want to give him that kind of money. And the Canucks need more team speed. He doesn't have that. He can't create for himself. It's all about his teammates. If you go watch his 40 goal season, there's a nice breakdown of every goal he scored. Count how many goals he created for himself. I counted 2, right? Now he has a great shot and there's a lot of nice power play goals there. But again, it's great passes from JT Miller, who is no longer there, who he had great chemistry with, and from PD from that point too. So I don't see it with him. I would move him and see if you can get some assets.
I agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't think it's a contract if you sign him for 7-8 years. I don't think it's going to age well at all. But I kind of wonder if this Miller move has backed them into a bit of a corner with the like they don't have forward depth to just get rid of. Like, they can't get rid of a Brock Besser and a JT Miller, I don't think. Like, you look at some of the upcoming free agents that are going to be on the market outside of possibly Mikko Rantanen, there's not someone who's going to be a 30-plus goal guy, right? So I think they've kind of backed themselves into a corner here, and they might actually need to extend them to what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually kind of thinking that as well. Let's keep in mind too that the NHL did announce that the salary cap's going to go up $7.5 million, I believe it is, next
Yep,
season, and
that's
it's
true.
projected to be over $100 million within 2 seasons from now. So that goes from 88 to 95, and then they're predicting that it's going to crest 100 at that point. So that 8 million, Nick, looks more like, let's say, 6 million. Would you be
Sure.
all right with that? Because that's a great point by Jake. Like, you know, they're kind of screwed, like, in terms of, like, if you're going to move out a winger that, you know, does score 30 goals and has hit 40 once, like, how are you going to replace that? And you're definitely not doing that within right now. So, you know, maybe they are sort of, you know, hands tied that they're going to have to, you know, sign this guy, even though they might have to, you know, hold their breath while doing
Yeah, I just like I can't get on board with that term. I
it.
just
Okay.
can't. Like that's
Okay.
gonna absolutely sewer them in the future. And I know if you're thinking now, yes, you want him, but I think this core needs a bigger shakeup than just JT being gone. Like this is their third coach. They have proven they do not have what it takes, right? There's been I know, Andrew, you don't like to count the bubble, right? So if you don't count the bubble, they've had
You
one
shouldn't.
good year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You shouldn't.
exactly.
You
They went
shouldn't
on a
because it was
weird run
fake.
in the
Yeah.
bubble, and
Yeah.
then they had a great year last year. This core hasn't done anything other than that one year, and now they're right back to ground zero again. I think they've proven they do not have what it takes. I think Quinn Hughes has constantly proven he has what it takes, and he is arguably the best player in the NHL right now. He's
Yeah.
incredible,
Yeah.
right? For me personally, if you are not number 43 and I'm Jim Rutherford, I am listening for anyone right now, minus him.
So, Jake, do you think maybe then that, you know, their best move is perhaps to move Pettersson while he doesn't have this trade protection to do what Nick is talking about there?
You know, I mean, I wouldn't do it right away. I would hold on to him. You have basically up until July 1st, I think, is when his no move
Yep.
clause kicks in.
Yep.
So I think I would let him ride out this season. Just see if he's capable of pulling his weight and being that dominant number one center that everybody wants Elias Pettersson to be. And if he proves it, then great. You hold on to him. But if he doesn't, then I think come draft time, you look to make a move then.
I think that's a good point. Like, this is honestly, I'd be okay with them moving him now if they get good value for him. But like now, if they decide to keep him until the draft, he has no excuse now, right? Like the like JT is gone, right? There's no more locker room beef. There's no more distractions. This is you. This is your team now as the number one forward. He has all the pressure on him, and he said in media, like, I want the pressure, so let's see it. And you know, against Dallas yesterday, it didn't really look any different than it has, right? And I know it's just one game and the trade happened pre-game, but like I don't really, I'm not one for moral victories. This is pro sports, right? You're getting paid 11.6. It's time to wake up and do something. I don't care that he had a great shift against Edmonton where he hit 3 people in the corner.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, you're paid to produce, right?
Yeah.
He needs to figure it out, and he has all the capability in the world of doing it. He has all the talent in the world, and when he's at the top of his game, I love watching him. He's so enjoyable to watch, but he needs to figure it out.
Yeah, you shouldn't be cherry picking games for your superstar player that's the 5th highest paid player in the league. I mean, in actuality, like, you know, that should be Quinn Hughes making that 11.6. And in fact, I think Canucks would be happy if they could get him at 11.6 on the next contract, because man, he's going to hit a whopper with that one. But you mentioned something pretty interesting, and I want to get both you guys' thoughts on this. So I'll start with you though, Jake, because Nick pointed this out. Are the locker room differences now solved? Because you got to figure that there were guys that were on JT's side, if there was a, you know, split, fracture, whatever you want to say, you know, within that room. Like even Demko, I saw on his Instagram today, just put a photo of him and Miller hugging, you know, so, you know, they're friends. And I'm not saying that Demko's not friends with Pettersson, but I am wondering, you know, because that's such a major shakeup, is it all good in Canuck-land now? Or perhaps there could be some, you know, sort of after, you know, so bad feelings, you know, afterwards with JT walking out the door?
I think it's gonna take a second. Like you say, it's a huge shakeup. So I think it's gonna take like a little bit of an adjustment period. But I I think the players, for the most part, everybody just wants to move on. It was such a distraction for months, and we finally get to January 31st. When did Miller take that personal leave? That was
Oh shoot.
in December.
Yeah.
Like it's been a couple months now, and I think everybody just wants to move on. And so I don't see it being a huge fracture in the dressing room for the rest of the season. But like Nick said, like they probably should shake up the core a little bit more if they want to really take it as far as they can and win a Stanley Cup. Like Nick said, this group hasn't proved it yet, and they've had the opportunity to prove it. They've had so many chances. So yeah, I do think you need to shake things up a little bit more, but I don't know if getting rid of Elias Pettersson is necessarily the best option at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder, I do wonder if guys are looking over at 40 and being like, all right, buddy, like, come on, step up now. Like, look at how much money you're making here, and you're not even close to a point a game player at this point in this year, at least, right? So do you see him get back to that point? Because I feel like there could be some guys that sit in their room going like, hey, we moved the wrong guy here. There could be some guys that are, we're in JT's in corner. And as we record this right now, the Rangers are playing the Bruins, and the first goal scored for the Rangers was JT Miller, right? So the guy produces. We know that. I like this stat, and I want to give credit because my buddy Grady Sass pointed this out. Miller finished his career with 437 points in 404 games as a Canuck. Him and Bure are the only Canucks throughout their careers in Vancouver to average a point per game or higher. So that's pretty remarkable. And of course, it wasn't higher. Like nobody's averaging 2 points per game over that. But I just thought that was a pretty interesting stat. And as much as JT sort of got dragged a bit by people, like, I mean, I have to admit, and I think I've said it on this pod, like I was more Team Miller than I was Team Pettersson. And I just, we talked about this on a past pod, so maybe if you're the listener, you can go back and hear it. But I just thought that with the way this window is right now, and if the goal is to, make the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup, that I felt like, Miller could be the guy to drag you there more than Pettersson. But that's all gone now anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Before we get off the futures here, though, let's finish up, I guess, with Demko. Like, because when we went into this season, a lot of people, that around the league were just, praising Thatcher Demko and, saying, the Canucks are going to go as far as he can take them. But Nick, now the court of public opinion, and don't get me wrong, Canuck fans are pretty bipolar at times. It seems like most people are like, and seen it on our socials, like, trade Demko, get rid of Demko. Like, is that a good thing to be even thinking right now? Because there is, like, could he be Corey Schneider 2.0? You know what I mean? Like, with that injury, could it just, maybe not be able to get back to the form that he was at before?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's so hard, right? Because this is kind of uncharted territory with that injury. We haven't really seen that before. Also, what is it with Canucks players and getting weird injuries that no one sees, like no one's ever seen? Like what's going on?
Hey, listen, I'm a Detroit Lions fan, and the two greatest Lions of all time just retired in their prime. So I don't want to hear any whining from any other fan base, because I can trump you with that one. Go ahead.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm not there yet with him. Like, he had a really good game in Nashville and then comes back with a stinker against Dallas. One thing that I saw pointed out by people on Twitter was there's a lot of goals being scored low on his left side, and you can see when he pushes off, like on that breakaway goal yesterday, that he doesn't have his right leg. He can't have his right leg flat on the ground because he doesn't have enough power. So he lifts his leg, and that's why that breakaway goal went 5-hole on the forehand backhand move. And apparently that's kind of been a big theme. He like cannot push off and have his leg on the ground, so that 5-hole opens up pretty big, which is an issue. Like, but again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, like, does that get better over time? Probably. I don't, but again, I have no idea. So if he can recover it's just such a weird situation that's so uncharted, and I don't have any idea. I mean, if you're Canucks management, you're talking to all the doctors and you're hearing, hey, like this isn't going to get any better, and this is all skeptical, I have no freaking idea. But like,
Mhm.
if you're hearing that and teams still value him at a very high level, yeah, maybe I would move him. But if the doctors are saying, hey, like, no, it's okay, like he's gonna get there, it's gonna take some time, I don't think you can move off of a generational goalie like that quickly.
Yeah, I personally I don't see a lot of teams being interested in touching that at this point just because of what he has shown and the concern with that injury. Um, if I were the Canucks, I would be giving them just softer matchups. Like I didn't think that he should have played last night against Dallas. I think he should have given that one to Kevin Lankinen. Um, and then give Demko tomorrow against Detroit. Like I feel like he, as much as it is like a medical issue, but I think he needs just to build up that confidence. Like goaltending is so confidence based. And as soon as you let in like one or two soft ones, it's in your head. It can rattle you. So I think you just give him the softer matchups for say until March, and then you reevaluate from there. But yeah, I don't think I'm at the point either where it's like we need to get rid of Thatcher Demko. He's lost
he
his touch.
he also has said like he is a big rhythm guy, so he wants the extra starts. So that's the other thing, right? They're probably trying to throw him a bone here and there, like the back, like with the Nashville than the Dallas game. And honestly, Vancouver defended pretty well yesterday, other than that breakaway, right? Like they had the two empty netters, which got them to 16 shots, but it was 3 goals on 14 shots for him, right? Like they're actually doing a pretty good job defending and helping him. I actually thought they did a worse job in Nashville, and he made some pretty unreal saves, especially in the slot. There's that one timer in the slot that he pushed off and made a nice save, getting his chest on it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation.
So what about Lankinen then? Because like he's UFA at the end of this season. Do you think? Because as we record this right now, the Canucks are obviously off. It's Saturday, February 1st. They are 1 point back of the Calgary Flames for that second wildcard spot. The Flames have a game in hand on them right now. Do both of you guys think that the Lankinen situation is going to go right down to the trade deadline wire and sort of monitor where they're at and whether, they think they're still, in the hunt for the playoffs? Because I think I'm kind of stating the obvious. I think they're going to be. Or do they go, you know what? No, this is an asset. Like this isn't our year in terms of, even if we get into the playoffs, this is an asset that we should move because they're, with goaltending, especially if somebody runs into an injury here before the trade deadline, like that could be a pretty piece to move, for a team that might be desperate for a goaltender. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that is going to be like a day by day thing, right?
Sure.
Like it's like you said, with an injury going down, you could get great value for it. And I do think the Canucks still have a good chance of making the playoffs, right? Like St. Louis is really struggling right now. Actually, on the Amazon Prime cast, Braden Shen ripped them between periods. I don't know if you guys saw that. They asked him why he fought JT Miller, and he said something to the effect of, "Yeah, the guys just aren't going
Yeah,
to
that's
start
right.
the
We
game, so I
needed a
tried
little
to."
juice or something. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like he ripped them, and then Brandon Saad gets his contract terminated the next day or 2 days after.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy. Like they might be in a worse situation than Vancouver is right now in the room there. So, and then obviously Calgary is kind of the team that kind of neck and neck with right now. They have a good chance of making it. I think management has made it very clear they are trying to get to the playoffs with that Marcus Pettersson trade, just swinging that draft pick just like that, and getting Drew O'Connor as well, who is a solid playoff player, bottom six guy that can skate and hit in his physical. Talking will probably love him. I think they've made it quite clear that is their goal right now. So I think they're going to do whatever they can to make a big of a push as they can.
Yeah, I kind of think like if you want to go on a big playoff push with the way Demko's playing, I think you hold on to Lankinen. And if Demko's not ready come playoff time, at least you have Kevin Lankinen to put in the net, and he can start. They can go kind of 1A, 1B, kind of like we've seen Boston do in the past, or you can just give Lankinen the net in the playoffs. I mean, it's not like it costs them much to bring him in. What did they sign him for? $875,000 on a 1-year deal. So
yeah, it's the ticket after this that is, the one that you've got to make a decision on, right?
Yeah, I think you ride him out for the whole year, and you kind of reevaluate with how Demko played for that time span as well. And I don't think that we're necessarily going to see Lankinen get an extension before July 1st, but I think the Canucks could re-sign him after July 1st. But I do expect him to test the waters a bit as well in free agency.
So that first round pick, it did get flipped and to Pittsburgh, and it was from the Rangers. It was top 13 protected, and I'm just looking at the league standings right now. They're the 11th worst team in the league, right? So they, the Canucks wouldn't probably get that, or no, they wouldn't get that pick really until 2026. And with the Rangers and the lineup that they have, there's probably a good chance that it's not going to be a lottery type pick anymore, right? So kind of okay with moving that pick, but Marcus Pettersson, I don't know a lot about the player. I do know that Patrick Alvin just loves, the last name Pettersson. He just seems to have to collect them all now around the league. But looking at, different people that, do the analytics and whatnot, Jay Fresh Hockey is a great follow on Blue Sky, or that Nazi site that Elon Musk owns. So if you want to follow him there, I mean, he said Jay Fresh has got him, with his card saying that he's, top 4 type defenseman. So, if you are swinging a first round pick, for a defenseman like that, and how old is he right now? At 28 years old, I think I'm okay with that. And I was going to say I'm okay with that risk, but I don't know if there is a lot of risk there. I think that's the kind of player that the team needs. I know he's a left shot guy, but let's be honest, they had 2 good defensemen, before they acquired Marcus Pettersson. Now, arguably, they have 3.
Yeah, that was, as long as they extend him, I don't think it's a bad deal at all.
I think that's kind of obvious, right? It's got to be obvious. Yeah.
I also think flipping Heinen for O'Connor is kind of is really sneaky good move for them. Heinen didn't play bad at all this year, right? He wasn't an impact player at all. And Talkett wants guys that are physical on the puck. Heinen doesn't really do that. He's a really hard worker and he gets in on the forecheck, but O'Connor's actually a physical winger. He's going to finish his checks. He can skate pretty much as well as Heinen from what I've seen. I have a small sample size watching him, but from what I've seen, he can move. He's 6'3". He's a big guy who finishes his checks. Talkett's going to love him. He's a Talkett guy. And this management group is all in on Talkett, right? So that's a sneaky good move too. I think he's going to bring a lot more value than people are thinking to this group.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And the way, talking about Marcus Pettersson, the way that Tyler Myers has been playing the last few games, I think you do really have a pretty solid top 4 decor right now. It's not by any means near the top of the league, top 4 decor, but I think it is one that you can be comfortable with going into playoffs. And also having Carson Soucy now as your number 5, that's kind of the ideal spot for him. So I think adding Marcus Pettersson, he's not, I was comparing him a bit to Nikita Zadorov last night with a couple buddies. He's nothing like Nikita Zadorov in play style, but he's going to be that kind of top 4, maybe your number 5 guy that really can complement Quinn Hughes and Carson Soucy down the left side and just add a lot of depth to that left side of the decor, that when you get into playoffs, you have Hughes playing 27 minutes a night, and then Soucy and Pettersson can kind of take on 18 and 16 minutes a night, let's say. I'm not a math guy, but you know what I'm saying? I think it takes pressure off of Carson Soucy to be that top 4 guy, and it gives it really shores up the left side of the decor to one where I look at now on paper and I don't go, oh man, that looks awful. Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, I'm comfortable with this heading into a playoff race.
Also, shocking that splitting up Hronek and Hughes has worked for them. Who
Yeah.
saw that coming?
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean actually having a good defenseman on the second pair is going to be helpful for us?
Yeah, no
no
doubt.
frickin' way.
No doubt.
Wild.
And you're right to credit Tyler Myers for the play that he's had since the suspension. He's been good. You know, and that's the thing about Tyler Myers is like he's got all the, you know, physical abilities to be, the right shot guy. He's big, general managers salivate over that guy. But we've also seen him be the chaos draft that he is from time to time, right? So give credit when credit's due. And yeah, I like the game that Myers is given right now. But what about though Drew O'Connor? You sold him short, by the way, Nick, because Hockey DB's got him at 6'4". So he's a big boy.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure what day of the week it is. Maybe he is 6'3". But regardless, he scored 33 points last year, but 16 of those were goals. So that's, if you're getting 16 goals from a third line guy, because I know right now, if you go to check out the lines, I don't think they're on the ice today. I think there was a team day off, or at least I haven't seen yet. But they got him on the second line right now with Hedl and Connor Garland on daily faceoffs lineups. I don't know if he's a second line guy, but if he does have a bit of offensive upside like that, that might be a sneaky good move for the Canucks.
Absolutely. And having a guy that can kind of go in and out based on injuries or how players are playing is very valuable, right? Also, I know last podcast we talked about this team not having an identity at all, especially in their bottom 6. This helps big time with that. Having him and Sherwood in your bottom 6 just to bang in the corners, and Tocchet wants the Canucks to dump a chase all the time, and they haven't been able to get in on the forecheck enough. This is a big help for that, right? Especially in a playoff series, guys like that help you wear the other team down. I'm really big on that, and the game has developed from just having big lugs that can't move to having people like O'Connor that are big and strong but also can actually skate, which is a good addition there, and good revelation to the modern game.
I was wrong too, guys. They were on the ice today. Actually, I just looked it up. No team day off for the Canucks today. But yeah, I mean, listen, maybe Drew O'Connor ends up being one of these guys that, fans latch onto as well, right? Canuck fans love the lunch pail type guys, right? Guys that can get in, muck it up a bit, right? And I mean, hey, they love JT Miller. He's kind of one of those guys as well. They were chanting his name many times. Won't be doing that anymore. But, maybe Drew O'Connor can be one of those guys that, the fans will like, and maybe we'll find a home here in Vancouver. Because he is UFA at the end of the year as well, on a really nice ticket for the Canucks. Do either of you think that perhaps, as our buddy Sat reports that they are looking to add an impact forward? Do either of you think that anybody that's been acquired here could potentially be flipped, to try to add that impact forward?
I wonder if the prospect they got back from New York, Mancini. A lot of teams are looking for young right shot defensemen, so I think he would have a little bit of value to him. But outside of that, I don't really see, I would love for the Canucks to hold on to Drew O'Connor for the reasons Nick just said. I think he adds a lot to the bottom 6 in terms of just his forechecking ability, his speed, and his goal scoring as well. So I would like them to hold on to O'Connor. I don't see a world where they decide to flip Hedl or Pettersson as well. So yeah, I think Mancini would be the piece that I could see being flipped for another impactful player that can help the team right now.
Yeah, I wonder, it depends how high they are on Hedl. We've kind of heard that they've been targeting him, so they're probably pretty high on him and believe in him. I wonder, one thing that scares me about Hedl is his concussion past. Apparently he almost retired last year because his concussions were so bad. So
yeah, that's not good.
Apparently he's overcome that. which is good. And remember, like, there was a time where Sidney Crosby almost retired after all those
That is true.
concussions in
Yeah.
the 2010s.
Yeah.
So you never know, right? But I wonder if maybe flipping him for that impact forward they're talking about. I know there's a hole at center ice. Like, I completely understand that. But I wonder if that's an idea they have. I could perhaps see that, especially with a player with that injury history. Again, how much do other management teams, how wary are they of that as well? But I think I could see that happening as well.
Best season that he had, Hedel, was 45 points in 74 games in the 22-23 year. 22 of those are goals. So, not bad production there. And like you mentioned earlier as well, Nick, he has been kind of buried in New York. They got some center depth there, right? So maybe this could be the place where he can really break out and, find his new home, if you will, here in Vancouver. 36 playoff games under his belt already as well. So you kind of like seeing that. He had that run with the Rangers in 21-22 where he played 20 games. But 13 points, 36 games, not a big point production in terms of the playoffs, but I do like the fact that he's got a lot of experience when the games really matter in the NHL. All right. Lastly here, guys, and this one's a little nitpicky, but I found it interesting, and I got to credit the guys over at 32 Thoughts, the podcast, because they pointed it out as well. But Linus Karlsson scores his first career NHL goal, and not a single Canuck went to grab the puck. Do you guys find that interesting, or maybe am I just sort of, or even the 32 Thoughts guys, sort of making something out of nothing? What do you guys think?
Yeah, like, I think that might be a testament to what's going on, like, with everything going on at that time in the room, right? I think probably distracted, so much noise going on behind the scenes, and you just kind of lose track of something like that. Because if you look at the celebration, like, Hoglander was super excited and, like, ran over to him. So I don't think it has anything to do with, like, the bad chemistry. I think they just kind of lost track of everything.
All right. What about you, Jake? You're the hockey player. What if you scored your first tally in the NHL and you're looking around like, boys, what would you feel like?
I think if it were me burying my first one, I would be pretty upset that the boys didn't get me the puck. But I don't think it's really telling in anything. Like, I can't see the team not liking Linus Karlsson for whatever reason. But yeah, I think if it were me, I'd be a little bit upset that the boys didn't immediately grab me that puck.
Yeah, right. I'll give him a pass on that one as well, but just because of everything that's been sort of hovering over this team, right? But hey, like Elias Pettersson said, he was asked about the JT Miller trade. He was very diplomatic about it, said good forward. We did have some good chemistry in the playoffs. I'm paraphrasing for him right now, but his key out of that whole thing was, basically like clean slate, kind of move forward, right? So let's see if this Canucks team can move forward, as they've got a pretty busy week ahead of them. They'll play tomorrow at home against Detroit. Then they've got McKinnon and the boys in town on Tuesday. Head out for a quick little in and out in San Jose on Thursday. And then, of course, the center of the universe comes to town with the Toronto Maple Leafs next Saturday at a 4 p.m. start, guys. Remember that 4 p.m. start when the blue and white come to town. I'm sure Canuck fans will be all right with that, right? Anyway, for the Healthy Scratches, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week.